back. I'm Rose Martin, and this is Real Life with our very favorite life coach, Susan Harf. And like you, I can't wait to hear what's on her mind today. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Rose. I'm so happy to see you, and I'm very glad that you decided to join us today as well. Today, I want to ask the question of you, what are you going to do about it? That's what we're talking about today.
About what in particular? Anything?
Anything and everything. So
I know where you're going. We're looking at reactions, right? And what kind of reactions do we have on different kinds of issues? Is that where you're going?
That's part of it, yes. And I'm also thinking about, are you, for the most part, in the present? Are you thinking about what's happening right now? Or do you bring the past into what's happening right now? And if you do, is it the immediate past or is it years ago?
You know what my question is? When you're happy, I think you're more in the present. When you're upset or something's just kind of tearing at you, I tend to go, I'll speak for myself, tend to look back and I'll bring up stuff from the past, but if I'm happy, I'm like, yeah, things are going great. I'm in the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's very true of most people. So let's talk about when we're in the past. So let's think about somebody says something to you and you don't like it. Okay, there are many things that you can do. One of the things you can do is to say, I didn't like it when you did it yesterday, and I didn't like it when you did it last month. And by the way, all my girlfriends don't like it either when you do that. Okay, do you think that that's helpful?
Well, I don't know. I would tend to say, yeah, that would be an automatic answer. And just so you know, it's not just me. We all agree that that's wrong.
And Rose, just for right now, I've tried it and it does not work. I've tried it. I've done that. It does not work. It doesn't bring me where I want to go. So when somebody says something, let's say they ask you a question that's not even adversarial. Let's say they say, so I'm looking at a condo in this building. How much did you pay for your condo? And they're asking it probably with no intent to embarrass you or to be too prying into your, they're not asking you to pry. They just want to know.
Well, they want to get a good deal, right? They don't want to overpay.
So they have their reasons for why they're asking you that question. They could also be asking, in another situation, somebody could say, so how old are you? I heard that you're older than your husband, or that your husband's older than you. How many years apart are you? Or, I heard that you dropped out of college and you went later. What did you do in between? There are many questions that people ask for various reasons, and they have their own reasons. But we don't have to answer every question that is asked of us.
And sometimes you're right, we do, because we feel that way because people are curious and we are normally in a conversation. Then afterwards you'd be like, why did I tell all that?
Yeah, exactly. And so what I advocate is sometimes it's better to just not answer.
And not say, why do you want to know that? Or I'm curious why you're thinking about that.
Well, that's another answer. Okay, you're on to number 2, Rose.
Perfect.
So first, you cannot answer. You can just change the subject. You can just say nothing. I have a client right now whose boss has a habit of berating her. When he is critiquing her work, he doesn't just critique. He doesn't offer constructive criticism. He berates her. And what she was doing was she felt very defensive, and so she'd give it back to him. And instead, I've asked her how she would feel if she just said nothing. And the silence sometimes is very difficult for people to bear, so they fill up the silence with words, but then what they find themselves saying are things they don't want to say.
But I can see in a way, while in that situation, where she would be like, I don't like it, and no one else here likes it either.
Correct.
So as a way to kind of say, it's not just me, you do this to everybody, and none of us like it.
Well, let's put it this way. Whenever you bring in the Army, that should be a signal to you that you are not only feeling defensive, you're feeling weak. We don't feel a need to bring everybody else in the room, figuratively, unless we feel like we can't support ourselves in the room. So whenever you start to say everybody else thinks it too, it's really not about who thinks what or anything having to do with the issue. It's about you and how you feel inadequate in that moment, and so you're going to add in an army to help you feel bolstered. When you
Do other people pick up on that feeling of inadequacy?
And they if someone is being a bully, or if someone is being unnecessarily critical, or if someone is not giving you constructive criticism, that only gives them fodder for more. So essentially what we're saying is, number one, you don't have to say anything. Number two, you absolutely can answer a question with a question. I wonder why you feel I need to know that. And then if they say, well, I'm buying a house on this street, so I wanted to know how much you paid for your house. So then they have an answer which they believe is logical and rational, but I still don't want to answer it. Then I say, I don't answer those questions. And then there's silence, and I'm okay with that silence. In the same way, when people say to me, I can't do that. So what's the topic today is, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do when somebody says to you, I just really want you to come to the fundraiser because I've worked so hard on this and I need all my friends to be there, and you don't want to go. And you say instead, well, I can't because I am watching my grandchildren that night. And then they say, well, gee, I have a friend who could watch your grandchildren. It's really important to me that you come, so I've got an idea. I'll just call her up. Well, my daughter doesn't like it when there are strangers babysitting. She would not go for that. Okay, well, how about if you babysit for the first half hour and then you excuse yourself and you come on over to the fundraiser? If you are not telling the person the truth, they can think of 101 reasons why they're right and they want to get what they want. So you need to instead be honest with your feelings and not say I can't, say I won't. Because that's really what it is. It's not that I can't stop myself from eating this ice cream when I shouldn't be eating a gallon of ice cream. It's not I can't, I won't.
And can't is the ability to change something. So you do have the ability to make a different choice, and you do have the ability to say what's on your mind. It's whether you choose to or not.
Rose, you're such a good life strategist. You're fantastic. That's the truth. We all can decide something different. And you know what's great about that? Every second, you can change the course of the actions. You may not be able to change what somebody said to you, but you can change the course of the conversation, or sometimes the course of the direction of what's happening, by what you do or what you say or don't say.
Why do you think people defer to excuses or reasons that they're not going to do something instead of just say no?
They don't want to take responsibility for their feelings because they feel in some way guilty about their feelings. They feel like they owe the person an answer, or if they're not going to give them an answer, they feel like they owe the person something, what they believe is kinder. So to say, I won't go to that fundraiser, in some people's minds, sounds rude. And so instead they say, oh, I'd love to, but I can't. The fact is that people who truly know you, they're going to know that that is an excuse. Mm-hmm. You can, of course you can. Now, along with that, the reason I want people to tell the truth is because it's only when we take responsibility for our feelings that we can change them. So you can't really change the present and the future until you take responsibility for how you feel right now. So for example, let's say what are you going to do about it has to do with what somebody said to you that was unnecessarily critical. Mm-hmm. So I can think of one that a mother said to a client of mine. Honey, you don't need that extra piece of cake. Now you just had a baby and you're never going to lose that weight if you keep eating that way. That's what she said to my client. Okay. My client did not know how to handle that because she doesn't want to say something that's going to be upsetting to her mother. She knows her mother is saying this for her own good, but in fact, it's rude and it's inappropriate. So what we talked about instead was, instead of being silent there or going home and saying to her husband, how dare she say these things to me?
Which she might have done anyway.
Which that's perfectly okay to do, but when she gets home. But with her mom, what she needs to do is say, this is how I feel when you say that. So in other words, take responsibility for how you feel when someone says something that you don't like. regardless of whether they think it's rude of them to say it or not. It's not appropriate for you. So you say, Mom, when you say that I don't need an extra piece of cake, I feel terrible because I'm trying to work on this issue, and at the same time, I'm breastfeeding, and I have reasons why I don't want to be on a diet program right now, and period. And we don't need to say any more than that. So
you wouldn't even have to give the reasons. would
correct. You don't have to.
You don't even have to say that.
However, I feel this way when you do that because it rounds out the circle and allows the person to know where you're coming from. I think that being vulnerable with people is a good idea. That's scary for some people. But when you're willing to be that vulnerable, it usually allows the person who might be very well-meaning to shut up.
So let's talk about the reaction of the other person, because if they're called off on something like that, which it will be unexpected for a lot of people, then what if they come back with something and say, well, you know, I was only trying to look out for you, and they give reasons for why they said something that may have been inappropriate or even downright cruel, then you just say it's done, or how do you handle it?
So, Mom, what you're telling me is you said that for my own good? Is that what you're telling me? And then what might she say?
Well, you know I love you. I'm only doing this because I love you. You know I've always had your best interest at heart. You know I would never hurt you, right? It can get very emotional, and it could be, then you turn on it and say, well, maybe I did say something that I shouldn't have, or
I would respond
inappropriately.
So I'd respond by saying, I know you love me, and I feel bad when you say those things to me. Or, I know you love me. I'm going to be in charge of my own eating, Mom. I don't need you to be.
And then what point in time do you end the conversation and say, let's just change this. Let's just change it.
That's an ending right there.
Yeah.
I know you love me, Mom, and I'm going to be in charge of that. I'm going to be in charge of my own eating. I don't need that from you. And usually that will stop the conversation. So you acknowledge what they're saying. I'm not saying to avoid what they're bringing. And most of the time the person will say, I'm doing this for your own good, or somebody needs to tell you, or I'm your mother, I would never hurt you.
But this would even apply if someone's trying to tell you how to parent your children, or what time they go to bed. Yeah, so there'd be lots of different ways that we could apply that same strategy to any kind of situation.
So, yes, so I know you mean well. You can say it in a lot of different ways. I hear what you're saying. I know you mean well. You're the child's grandparent. I know you have the best of intentions. Any of these things are fine to let them know that you heard them. It's okay to let somebody know you heard them even if you don't agree with what they're doing. So I feel this way when you do that because, and I hear what you're saying back to me, and then the next statement has to be, and this is what I want. So I know you would never.
What if they come back to you and say, why are you acting so weird?
That's when I would use silence.
Okay.
I don't need to defend myself at that moment. I don't need to.
Like, why are you processing, giving me all this stuff right now?
And that, by the way, is projection. You don't need to tell them that either. It's projection because they understand now that they've said something that you've had this reaction to, and now you're definitive about it. I did hear you. I know why you said it. You just told me why you said it, and I don't want that to happen again.
What I'm getting from you is you're definitive about it. That hits home. It's like, take ownership, take control,
yes,
and then it's done.
Yes, and what you need to take control over is you.
Yep.
So we don't need to take control over them, and we're not going to stop them, and we're not going to be in charge of what they do, say, act, feel. But we can be in charge of what we say back. Mm-hmm. We can be in charge of what we do back. And the other times I see this happening is when people are operating in a way in their life now, in the present. They come to me with an issue that they have that's bothering them. Another client I have came to me and said, I always pick men who are not kind to me. I pick men who are very strong in a lot of areas that I like. They're very great. They're good at their jobs. They're great in their careers. They're very well respected. And I don't like how they speak to me, or I don't like how they treat me, or they're not loving when I need them to be loving. And then usually when we start getting into it, and coaching is in the present, but sometimes we do need to look at the past to figure out where that came from. And so with this client, she wanted to tell me that it's all her parents' fault, because her parents never told her she was beautiful. Her parents never told her she was good. Her parents never told her she was good enough. And what I say back to that client and to you and to all of us is, if your parents didn't know that it was important to tell you how good you were and tell you how beautiful you were, number one, by not telling them that, or by not treating them well, that's hardly the way out of the problem. By perpetuating the wrongdoing of somebody else, that is hardly the way out of this. That's not the way out of this at all. What ends up hurting us is not the love or the assurance or the self-confidence that we weren't given in the past. It's all of those things that we're not giving now in our present. So to the woman to the client and people out there who have people in their lives who don't tell them what they want to hear, if they've selected that person to be in their life, then what that says to me is, I'm not negating that the past doesn't have anything to do with the now. I get that if you had a parent who never told you you were beautiful or never told you you were good, that you don't tend to bring people in your life who tell you that. However, here's the exciting part. You can change that. And the way we change it is to first take responsibility for how we feel about ourselves and not blame it on the parent who didn't tell us. I know in my client's case and others, the parent never learned how to do that because their parent didn't tell them the same thing.
And you know, sometimes it could go decades with people playing this blame game.
It does.
Yeah, but the blame game with their parents or excuses. This is why I am the way I am because you did this to me or you didn't do this for me.
Exactly.
And so now I'm having to deal with this and it's all your fault.
Exactly. I see that over and over again in my coaching. I see that with people who are perpetuating the mistakes that their parents made in the past. So the remedy, here goes, the remedy is you turn around and you tell your parents, you know what? I know you did the best you could do. Sometimes you weren't perfect, but I know you did the best you could do. And then you turn around again and you tell yourself, I am good, and I'm going to invite people into my life who tell me the same thing. That's who belongs in my life, people who tell me what I'm going to tell myself, which is, I'm good, I deserve it.
So people who've done this, and so they've got a history of, gosh, now I'm listening to you, Susan, and I've said this to someone special in my life, or a parent, or whoever the person may be. Are you advocating that right now, if you've done that, you can change it, but you need to reach out to that person and say, look, you know, I know you did the best you could. This is a situation that, you know.
Yes, I'm not going to say this is what you should do, but what I am going to say is watch and see what happens to you if you do. So if you turn around and you say to your parent, there are times when we've been at odds as adults. There are times when we've been at odds. I want to tell you that I've figured something out. You did the best you could do. You weren't always perfect. You didn't always tell me what I needed to hear. But I'm taking responsibility for myself now, and I just want to leave it here with you that I know you did the best you could do.
You know how many parents are going to be shocked, or how many family members or people are going to be shocked when you come to them with this aha moment? And then you're also removing a little bit of a barrier that probably has been a little bristly over the years, I would assume, too.
Absolutely. And so the bottom line here is you do it for yourself, because keep in mind, the only time you can think about what are you going to do about it, what you're going to do next, is when you have first taken responsibility for how it is you feel when that thing occurs. Okay, now I want to talk about something else related to what are you going to do about it. And I'm going to ask a question. Have you ever been unloading the dishwasher or the dry rack or whatever, and the dish falls out of your hand and breaks? Has that ever happened? That has happened to me.
Yes.
So do you think the remedy for that is go get all the dishes in the cupboard and throw them on the floor?
No.
Good answer, Rose. Good answer. No, that is not the remedy for that. But do you know how many times someone has said to me, okay, I'm on my diet and I went off tonight. So today's Wednesday and I'm going to start the diet again Monday. And between now, Wednesday, and the rest of the week on Sunday, I'm going crazy because I already ate a piece of cake. Why not? Do you know how many people say that to me all day long? And sometimes I say it to myself. And sometimes I said it to myself. Okay, so here you go. So that is hardly the way out of the problem, folks.
Right.
If you slip up, If something happens, we're talking about what are you going to do about it. Let's say you were the one that did something that you don't like or you don't approve of or you want to change. Does that mean that you did something that was not good? Does that mean you're not good? No. Does that mean that you might as well forget about the goal? No. It means that you slipped up once. That is irrelevant to the rest of your life. It is never, ever what happens to you that matters. It is what do you do about it? What do you do next? So when you eat the piece of cake and you didn't want to eat cake, let's say, okay.
Don't finish the whole
It's
cake.
no big deal. One piece of cake's not going to do anything to the rest of your life. If you say, I'm no good, I ate something bad, when you start attributing bad to behaviors, then you're attributing bad to you, whether it's, no matter what it is that you're trying to stop. Smoking, unhealthy eating, you have any kind of addiction, you have a poor relationship with someone in your life, no matter what it is that you're trying to
Even
change.
procrastination.
Procrastination,
You know?
never being on time. I mean, these are all the issues with my clients. And the fact is that it doesn't mean that you're not working on that goal anymore. It just means, it means nothing than more of what it is. One day, one moment, you didn't do it.
You're human.
You had a cigarette. You're trying to quit smoking and you had
Yeah.
a cigarette. Does that mean that what you just did for the last 6 months doesn't matter? Absolutely not. What it means is you had to slip up, you're human, okay, big deal, no big deal, move on, get on with it. It matters what you do about it. I don't want to hear that people went into a slide because one time they didn't defend themselves, and they're working on their assertiveness, and one time they did let somebody walk on them. That doesn't mean that you're not working on that issue. And that comes up a lot with my clients and some things that we talk about, because too often people believe that if they're not getting it what they call right every time, or if they're not making progress every moment, then that says something negative. It says nothing negative. It says you're human. That's what it is.
You know, sometimes I think impulsivity comes to play, because you had mentioned earlier, if we give ourselves time to breathe or to listen and have the empty space, that sometimes it might change even your reaction, or an impulsivity, or where you might feel you had a lack of control. If you take a breath and then you think, well, where am I right now? What do I really want to do, by putting myself in that moment and thinking about what I want to have happen.
Exactly. And that's, Rose, exactly is the word here, because that's what I'm asking people to do. I'm asking them to stop, think about what you want to do next. Just don't proceed without thinking. And sometimes when I tell clients, subordinate your feelings for your actions, that is when we stop and think and we decide, I don't want to answer. Or I don't want to do anything about this.
It could even happen in the middle of eating that piece of cake, right?
It can
you
happen.
Put the fork down and you're like, you know.
That's right.
I don't
It can
really
happen
wanna
in the
do
middle of
that.
an argument.
Right.
It can happen in the middle of a conversation that you don't like how it's going. It can happen when you're talking to your teenager and you don't like what's happening, either things that you're saying or things that he or she is saying. It can happen at any moment. Change is always possible, and it's always available. And you know, along with that, what I tell people is the choice to give in any situation is always an option when somebody didn't give that same choice to you. So the choice to give, no matter what it is, love, acceptance,
Maybe
positive,
benefit of the doubt.
positive
Yeah.
feedback, the benefit of the doubt, living in the present, the choice to give all of that is always an option, even if the person did not give that to you. You know, so often I would say when my kids were teenagers and we'd be having a discord, I'd say, you know, we got a lot in common right now. And one of them would say to me, no, we have nothing in common. I'm mad at you and you're mad at me. And I'd say,
you're
no,
being
no, no.
mean.
I'd say, yeah, right. I'd say, no, we got a lot in common. We both have a problem. Now, my problem, you think the problem happens to be me, and I think the problem happens to be your behavior. But we both got a problem, so we got something in common here. Seek to find the commonality and seek to deliver something that is not being delivered to you.
That would even work with a spousal argument, wouldn't it?
Of course, Rose. And something tells me you've tried it.
Yes. How would I know that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are the things that we need to think about. Seek to look at somebody as though they're going to give you their best. I've said before, I've witnessed situations where two different people brought out something completely different in another individual. People that I've seen in my office who don't get along, and then somebody else comes along who really likes that one of those people, and they bring out things in them that the other wasn't bringing out. You know, it's interesting when you seek the worst, usually you're going to find it. Even when you're seeking what that person gave you yesterday. So this person seems belligerent. I'm going to treat him as though he is belligerent. No, that was yesterday. He's not always belligerent. That doesn't mean that he's going to give you the same thing. You can still react to someone as though they're going to give you their best, even if they didn't last time.
I love that because we can be in the moment, we can change, and it's okay. It's okay to stop midstream and give yourself that break, give yourself that breath to think, what do I really want right now?
Exactly. That is the question. That's what we need to ask ourselves. What do I want to do next when something happens that we don't like, that we're
Susan, it's amazing. So we're all going to be in the moment and we're going to realize how we can react to something. Thank you. Always thanks to our favorite life coach, Susan Harf, for bringing us up to speed on what we really need to do. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time for Susan and Real Life. We'll see you.